Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about the Twilight Zone Season 5 Episode 34. It's called Come Wander With Me. So spoilers for the episode as per usual. We're only a couple away from the end of the entire show, which is why it's a shame to come on here and just complain about an episode that I didn't like very much. In fact, I don't really know what I'm going to say really beyond just explaining the events of the episode and then doing my best to try and like say whatever I think it was actually about. I mean, early on I was getting a strong vibe that it was about how we treat art and the idea that as time goes on it's becoming more and more of a commercial thing, because the main character's whole thing is that he's trying to buy up songs and like pay pittance for the rights to them so that he owns the songs, and he complains when something is public domain because then you can't own it. No one can own it and like keep it to themselves and profit from it. So it does feel like it's critiquing on that kind of thing. But I mean, I got that in the first half of the episode, and honestly, everything that it does with the rest of its story, you could argue it's just an extension of that, and he's being punished for those qualities, that this is art fighting back in some way or something. But to be honest, I just kind of found it a bit of a dull mess to to watch. I wasn't looking forward to this one, admittedly. When I read the description last time, it sounded like it was going to be a bit of a dud, at least for my tastes. Down to a couple of things. One was the idea that it spends a lot of its runtime with two characters just sitting singing a song back and forwards to each other in the woods. So from a location perspective, it doesn't sound that interesting. And it sounds like it's... You know, it sounded like going into it, it was probably going to be something where the writer's really enthusiastic about the song they've written and about, assuming that the writer wrote the song. I'm not sure if they did. Maybe they brought in a songwriter specifically for that. But yeah, just everything kind of about it was giving me a vibe of the type of episode that I wouldn't really enjoy that much. Obviously, I was hoping for the best. I go in with an open mind and hope that it's going to surprise me, impress me, do something else. Unfortunately, it didn't really achieve that. Instead, it feels like there's a mystery to this episode of what it's actually about. There's some kind of like being trapped in a time loop bubble, or being trapped, I guess, just in a Twilight Zone for to give it a name. But you know, this character, the main character, is this traveling musician, and he's been directed out to this small music shop in the middle of nowhere. He goes in, and this takes up, I mean, even just his like walk from the car to this shop and then just kind of waiting around for someone to show up is like 5 minutes of the episode pretty much. But he wants to buy a song from this guy here who runs this store, and this guy does not speak at all for ages. Like, he just stands there as our main character, Floyd, who you can't miss his name actually, because he has a very tacky guitar with his own name and sparkly like little obviously not real diamonds, but like, you know, decorative diamonds on his guitar, and little music notes also sparkly. Very, very tacky. But it sets up, and that's not a complaint, because it does set up the type of character that he is, that he values music for its financial merit. It's more about the show and the spectacle of it than it is for the love of the art or for the appreciation of musical genius or whatever it is. So, you know, he wants to buy a song, and this guy eventually just says no after standing there like a zombie, and he eventually gets distracted because he hears a woman singing somewhere in the distance in the forest, and our main character goes out looking for her, and that's then another couple of minutes of him just sort of going through the forest, hearing this singing off in the distance, thinking that this is a song that's good, that he can buy it. And eventually he does find this woman who is Mary Rachel. And I was a little confused here if there was an old song called that, or if this is just what he's calling the song that she was singing because she was singing it, or whatever. But he's like, hey, why don't you sing me that song? And she's like, no, I can't. It's forbidden. It belongs to someone else. And he's like, no, you listen to me. I'll pay for it. I'll make sure I get the rights to it. I want to own this. You sing me the song. And very quickly, this becomes like him promising that he'll take her away from here. He kisses her, says that he loves her. Or at least she says she loves him and kind of assumes that he loves her. He's, you know, it feels like he's playing her. It feels like he's using her. It feels like all of this is just a facade so he can get what he wants. You know, he's kind of an unlikable character, all things considered. I think at one point he even throws a rock at a bird at some point in this episode. So all of this sets up the type of character he is. It sets up what his goals are and how he treats music and art in general, I guess. But of course, the one thing that I've left out here is that when he goes off wandering, when he hears her singing, and it takes him a couple of minutes to find her, that's when Rod Serling comes in with a narration. And most importantly, we see an image of what appears to be his gravestone somewhere in this forest. And it's like, okay, what are we doing here? And immediately like, wait, is this a story of him being trapped in limbo? Is he already dead? Is he repeating this over and over? And certainly some of the things that Mary Rachel says to him, because she keeps trying to convince him to do things differently. You know, don't run away this time. Stay with me so you don't leave. And apparently it always ends with him dying, right? It always goes down the same path of him killing two people and then eventually dying by the end. The ad break ends on this, again, very kind of surreal moment where he's kissing Mary Rachel, but the camera like goes through a bunch of foliage to eventually get to what appears to be also Mary Rachel standing in what looks like funeral attire, watching on intently. So it's a very dreamlike episode. Once it gets going, you realize that we're not really playing in any kind of normal rules of reality or anything like that. Now, I realize that might sound like a weird thing to complain about because we're watching a Twilight Zone episode, but typically when they do episodes that are good about reality being kind of weird, or they're in a sort of alternate dimension or a time loop, or there's an indication that maybe we're in some kind of purgatory with a character reflected on who they are, or whatever it is, I feel like they do a better job of like conveying that to the audience so you get a feel for what the story is. Or at the very least, the actual story that we're watching unfold is more, just more compelling at face value. Like, you know, the actual journey, whether it's a character trapped somewhere and trying to get out. But here, it's all just about him wanting this song and asking her to sing the lyrics and to listen back to it. It's not that exciting. And I don't mean that it has to be action-packed to be exciting. I like a nice, intense conversation, especially when it's well written. But nothing of what they're talking about is all that interesting. And frankly, they spend a good bit of time just like playing the song. You know, she sings the song holding this guitar. He listens back to the song. He sings a little bit of it. That takes up a lot of the runtime of this episode. And honestly, when it started getting to the weird stuff where, oh, they're kind of in danger because she's brought up these brothers that the song belongs to. Eventually, one of them shows up with a shotgun and is like, hey, you're trying to take her away from here. I know your kind. And tries to shoot him, which is when he fights back and seemingly kills this guy. Admittedly, it's one of those classic TV things where it doesn't look he does enough to actually kill him, but they're saying, hey, it hit him hard enough that he killed him. So go with that. And then from there, like, you know, he goes on the run. He eventually ends up back at the little derelict music shop with the old man and ends up killing him as well. And the episode ends with presumably the rest of these brothers that were mentioned. These the Rayford brothers, that's what it was. Presumably these Rayford brothers showing up to get him, right? And they catch him here for killing their brother. And yeah, it does feel like he's trapped in hell. It does feel like he's on a cycle of some kind. And the fact that the first brother immediately wants to kill him either suggests that maybe it didn't go down exactly this way the first time, right? But this version of the brother knows who he is and what he's done and what he's going to do. So he's already hostile towards him. In the same way that Mary Rachel already knows where this is all going. Their brothers may also already know where this is going. And he just can't get out of it. He's in this loop. I think my problem with this is not only do I not think it's a particularly compelling version of this type of story where a character's trapped in some kind of, you know, hell, time loop, whatever you want to call it, it's that I don't really feel like it gels well with what I thought the key theme was to begin with. The key theme, again, going back to this idea of art just being something for profit and not for the love of what the art is. And him just trying to turn it into a completely economical thing. He's got a big speech about how everything's got a price tag. It's a buyer's market. You just have to find where the tag is. That's his attitude. So they'll lay on that theme very thick in the first half of the episode. But then all this other stuff where he's going to end up killing people in the back half just feels like we're going into a wild trajectory because we have to have excitement. And I realize I'm saying that what was going on wasn't already that exciting. I think that the core theme is solid enough. Like, I think the core theme is fine. I just don't think that all of the... I think that partly because it is just so weird to start with, as much as it doesn't get properly weird until the second half. I think when he first finds Mary Rachel, the fact that she's already speaking kind of weird, like she knows who he is, that there's some weird rules about this song, it almost like takes away from just the raw idea that he's going to manipulate some country girl out of a song, right? I think if it started off more normal, where she just seemed like an innocent girl singing a song, and he was kind of being a bit, you know, of not a con man or a creep necessarily, but basically some kind of huckster who was going to con her out of this song and convince her that it was worth selling to him for $50, $100, and then he would go and make lots of money from it. I think if it started off normally, and we could sort of see just kind of what the process was, but the fact that she's already acting like she's, you know, this weird looping version of herself, I think kind of like murkies up like my interest in that, because it just kind of felt like, oh, it's already doing weird things, and I don't understand why it's doing the weird things, and I don't ever really feel like it clicked together. Like, because that can work, obviously. Obviously, you can tease some weird things, and then it can all kind of fit in place by the end of the story, and you can understand, oh, that's what this meant, that's what that meant. I think my problem is that I still can't really quite link up the themes of this episode, what it's saying about art and music, and the commercialization of it, and what this character's suffering through, and the fact that he might have murdered someone in kind of self-defense. Like, I don't see why that punishment has anything to do with the raw theme that it seemed to be playing with up until that point. It's possible I'm missing, like, another whole theme or something, I don't know, but it feels like it's really just dealing with exploitation. Maybe you could just broaden it out to, like, you know, some big city guy trying to exploit some country folk, and the malicious nature behind that. I guess if you keep taking that further, you get to, oh, big city tycoon comes in and, like, buys up property for cheap and screws the locals out of things. Like, you could keep taking it further in your head with that, I suppose, but I still don't know how it, you know, it never really paints... It paints what he's doing is bad, but it never really feels like he deserves to be in, like, an eternal hell of being killed over and over again because of it. Maybe the point is he's supposed to learn and change the loop at some point once he's learned the error of his ways. But it also feels like he never remembers the previous times, so like he has no chance of ever learning that lesson. So I guess it all just boils down to a really simple, he's stuck in hell because he deserves this. If you agree with that or not, it's another thing, but that's what it is, and it really is just that simple. You know, it's not as good as, what was that episode? Was it Judgment Night? Something like that. It was the one where, I think it was back in like season 1 or 2, and it's the episode where on a boat, and over the course of the episode we learn that they were responsible for the death of people on another boat, so this was kind of them going through this loop, and that was more effective because that really felt like there was kind of a build of dread of what was going on. It wasn't like an amazing episode, but I think it achieved some similar things that this episode's kind of going for, because it at least felt like it was building to that idea the whole time. Here, once it got to the whole, like, he's in danger, someone's coming to murder him, I just kind of felt like, I just didn't feel like it naturally flowed to that point, and I just felt a bit, oh, I guess we're doing this now in the back half of the episode. So, yeah, not in love with it, sadly. The next one did sound kind of interesting, though. So the next one's called The Fear, which is a good title for a Twilight Zone episode. But here's a description on IMDb. Charlotte Scott and State Trooper Robert Franklin seem to be stalked by giants. It's actually quite simple. I feel like this is the first time I feel like Rod Serling gave me more than the description on IMDb did. Because I think Rod said something about, like, invasion from another world, another planet. And he specifically emphasized that it'll be a visual spectacle of some kind. So I don't know if they've got some special effects in this one to show off some giants. But the way Rod described it, it sounded like celestial beings were coming to town, which is kind of a big, like, ballsy concept for a TV show in the 60s to be trying to pull off. So I'm actually, you know, good or bad, I'm actually very fascinated to see what this next episode ends up being. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll see you for that next time. Of course, you can support the content and help keep all of it coming, both here on the TV channel and in all the movie podcasts over at Male Fuzz Movies. There's a sci-fi movie podcast over there worth checking out called The Atomic Cinema Experiment, which you can also get in podcast feeds. And of course, if you haven't seen, I also started doing the 80s version of the Twilight Zone recently. I'm about 5 episodes into that, and that's had a couple of really good episodes so far. Had a couple of stinkers as well, admittedly, but it's had a couple of really good episodes. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you very much for joining. Check out patreon.com/MaleFuzzTV, like I said, but that's me. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.